you're very welcome to another episode of the Offload. Today we are very excited about our guest, a man who we've come across on the rugby field with the Lions, having coached us. He coached you in 2005, Donncha. We were both part of the tour in 2009. Down in South Africa. He's had unbelievable success with the likes of Wasps, Leicester Tigers, Wales, and even a long time ago, part of the first Irish setup. Craig White, good afternoon. It's great to talk to you. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm really good. I'm really good. It's really great to be with you two guys because I know you're gonna have a connection with you. It just makes it more special. So I'm looking forward to having a crack with you two.
Well, listen,
Connection is right, Whitey. You have seen me puking out my nose,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that builds a bond like no other.
100%, mate. You liked it,
listen,
though. You
Whitey,
liked
I
it, though. You
want.
did like it, though.
Oh, and he
I did.
does. He's weird like that. He does
Yeah,
love that shit. That's why we differ very much so. But
Yeah.
Whitey, I want to say for people who are listening to this as well, who might have known the work that you've done in the past, but also what we really want to get into is the work that you've done away, because you've stepped away very much from rugby in a sense, in terms of now you've gone on a journey of discovery for yourself about looking inward and how the best leaders are being able to have unbelievable self-control, connection to other people, and being able to know themselves inside out and be able to project that. So I want to really get into that side of things too. But first of all, talk to us about you in Ireland. How did you end up part of the Irish setup way back
yeah.
when?
So I was the first full-time S&C coach with Ireland, but before that, I was working for a guy called Andy Clark. Andy Clark was a S&C consultant for the Irish rugby team. And we used to go across from Wigan. We used to go across, and like I'd go to Ulster and I'd go to Connacht, and he'd go to Munster and Leinster, and sometimes we'd switch, and then we'd come it together in camps. And so that would have been in 1995, and then in 1998 or 1999. I went on a tour with Ireland. I can't remember where we went, but we got back and Donald and Warren Gatland had said to me, "We want you to move to Dublin and live in Dublin." So I stopped working for Andy, and I worked full time for the Irish rugby team. Before that, I'd helped Andy at Sale and some rugby league clubs, and I was a conditioner at Waterloo. But Ireland was my first proper gig, really. So I moved to Ireland, I think, in 1999, and I lived in Ireland for just over 3 years.
Wow,
And
Whitey. When I think of
bang,
the athletes,
oh mate, it was bang at the start of professionalism.
that's what I was just about to say to you. When you look at the athletes, right, at that time, you had Claw, Golov, Rob Henderson, all that kind of vintage, right? They
Yeah,
wouldn't be known for their prowess for training, but characters, values,
yeah,
like good crack on a night out. They're exactly what you want in the dressing room, aren't they?
yeah. I loved them. I mean, they made my job hard, but I loved them. You know what I mean? And I really tried to. Nobody knew what they were doing. I didn't know what I was doing. There was no template then of how to train rugby players, so it was just a blank slate. And I remember doing what I've always done though. At that time, I looked at the squad and I thought, well, Eric Elwood's all right. People like him are okay, but Claw, Golov, Axel, I'm going to have to really kind of chase them down. So I actually spent a lot of time down your neck of the woods, Donncha, and I remember going to the houses of these lads and going into the cupboards and emptying the cupboards and having conversations with the wives and girlfriends.
Whitey, like whenever you came, because you're a Wigan boy, you've played rugby league at the top level. You think of some of the incredible coaches that have come from that setup, the likes of Sean Edwards, who you've worked with so much. Andy Farrell's doing incredible jobs with Ireland. What was it about league in those days that set it apart, and for you to step into what became professional rugby union and dealing with those boys who just had no idea what it took to be a full-time professional?
Do you know what? I think so. Having worked in Wales, but also having worked in Ireland, especially the Munster province. I mean, it's generalizing, but especially that Munster province, Munster, South Wales, Wigan, they're quite similar. They're really, really similar. Working class, hard values, have the crack. And I don't know. I could just fit in with those guys, and I tried to love them before I could whip them. But I don't know. There's something in the Wigan genes. When I was working at London Wasps, and we had the most successful period in the club's history, um, 4 of us in London was from the same school in Wigan, St John Fisher High School. It's a
Wow.
famous rugby league school, and a lot of famous players came from that school. But there's definitely something in the water in Wigan for sure. A lot of
Definitely. When you look at the
a
amount
lot
of
of even a lot of my mentees, if you like, from Wigan have gone on to be quite successful as S&C coaches.
wow, it is incredible. We just look at in the Irish system at the moment, the impression Andy Farrell has made on the whole thing. But you're right. If you look across the whole sector of it, and
Yeah,
especially in your game, Whitey, well, sorry, your past game with strength and conditioning, ye advanced it no end. You know, just even the leagueies, Paul Derbyshire with us
of
guys,
course.
just bringing it to another level.
Yeah, yeah. Um, because no, I mean, rugby league had been pro for a few years longer, hadn't it? And what happened in rugby union in the beginning is everybody was trying to develop conditioning, but they didn't know where to look. They'd go to athletics, they'd go to endurance coaches, and what I think what we did from rugby league is we brought a little bit of specificity. We brought a little bit of contact fitness, ground fitness, grappling, defensive fitness, turning defense into attack, conditioning in and around that. It was a bit. I think we brought a more kind of rugby biased approach to the way that players are prepared.
It's funny you mentioned that though. Like you just in the space of a few years from when you start working with the likes of Claw and Golov, because I remember the joke was that Claw could do the 5-minute runs in 4 minutes. He was that fit, you know what I mean? He'd
Yeah,
shave a minute off it.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I'll never forget. You remember 2005 when we toured. I
yeah,
know a lot of people have different views about that Lions tour, but we were blessed, man. We were together,
of course.
knocking around. We'd
Yeah,
a ball.
yeah.
Midweek massive.
The midweek massive.
And
There we go.
Shawsey.
Ah, and Shawsey. But I won't forget. Remember our first session in the Vale, and
Yeah,
you probably, but it lasted 17 minutes. I'll never forget it. It lasted 17 minutes. You paired me up with Ben Kay, and I
yeah,
could see you were kicking both of our cages. You were
yeah,
leaving us know you're competing here, and for 17 minutes, man, we went at it. And I've never
yeah.
done a session like it. You think 17 minutes, man, but I was cooked.
Well, that was our approach with at Wasps. You see, with everybody was running and doing endurance training, and we just ramped up the intensity. But when you ramp up the intensity, you have to bring the volume down. And so we tried to create sessions at Wasps where you couldn't cheat on the exercises. Um, the nature of the session brought fear and anxiety that you had to learn how to control. There was competition and there was a bit of decision making in it, and it was brutal. It was on off, and that's what we brought into that really.
But
I
you also
remember
brought,
that.
sorry,
Yeah.
go.
Well,
No, you,
I remember being part of it in 2009, and I was with the Welsh team at that stage, and you were with Wales, Whitey too. You'd
Yeah.
had unbelievable success with Warren Gatland and that Wasps team. Then you went across to Leicester Tigers. Was that your idea? Was that Gatz's idea? How did this whole idea of let's do something completely different to what other rugby teams are doing here? Let's make it really intense, short and sharp. And I'll never forget, like, if people were missing lineouts, making mistakes and back moves, the hooter went, and whether you cocked up, got it right or wrong, it didn't matter. The session was over, and
Yeah,
people like Paul O'Connell
yeah,
were like going mental because they
yeah, yeah,
couldn't get the detail and the
yeah.
reps in that he felt they needed.
I mean, Gatz's biggest quality at that time is his mantra was "Don't overcoach." You've got this amount of time, so you need to be on it. There's an opportunity here. If you fuck it up, you fuck it up. And so his big thing was overcoaching. And I think I just brought, I started training in a gym when I was 10. So I'd been weightlifting for years. And so I just brought that and this power training and the rugby specific stuff and um, contact stuff, really. Nobody was doing contact conditioning then. And you see it everywhere now. But we were the only ones at Wasps who were really, really getting into that.
But what you did as well, man, ye challenged coaches. You made them, if they were going to be shorter on their
Yeah,
time, their coaching detail needed to be better, their
yeah.
drills needed to be better. And before it was fine for them to run over time, whereas you'd fuck them out of it if they ran over time, which we'd never seen before. We were there like, is the strength and conditioning coach giving out to the head coach for, you know what I mean? And we were like,
I
our
mean,
heads were blown, man. We were there.
I had such a good relationship with Warren Gatland, especially at Wasps, that he actually encouraged that. He wanted me to put him under pressure, and he wanted me to put the coaches under pressure. And to be honest, he was the gaffer, but he pretty much let me run the show in terms of logistics and planning and intensities. And so we had a really good connection and a really good relationship. And he wanted that. He wanted
And
short,
how
sweet,
important
intense.
and how important was leadership then, Whitey? Like from like buy-in from the players, and like you're talking about Wasps there, I can think
that
the likes of Delalio. You know, you weren't short of incredible leaders there. To
Yeah.
I suppose if you get those guys on side, you're flying.
I mean, from my department perspective, we had myself, we had a guy called Paul Sturgeon, who's a legend
Bobby.
in the S&C.
Bobby.
We had a guy called Alan Ryan, who's the S&C coach at Toulouse. We had a guy called Alex, who's the S&C coach now at Bath. So we had some characters, and the likes of Delalio, Rob Howley, and people like that. I don't know. They loved our Wigan charm, our Wigan cockiness, our cheekiness, our, I don't know, capacity to love and have a laugh, but just crack the whip and be really brutal with these guys. They loved it. And to be honest, one thing that we did that nobody else was doing, most teams at the time had one S&C coach, and Gat said to me, Craig, we need to create an environment where nobody can fall through the net. So I said, right, if that's what you want, I said, give me 3 more conditioners and give me 3 interns.
Wow.
So sometimes we'd have 7 S&C coaches on the staff, on the pitch or in the gym, and everybody would be doing different things. And there was no hiding place. Nobody could hide. Nobody could get away with anything as well.
It's amazing to hear that, because that was the point of difference at that time, you know, that fitness element. And I played in that game in 2005 where we lost to Wasps in the old Lansdowne Road. And why do I remember it, man? I remember you coming on with, I'd say there was about 25 minutes to go, and you went to Joe Worsley and Shawsey, and you had this little, it was like a little thing of orange, ultimate orange or something like that. But like I know this sounds, it could have been complete placebo effect.
Yeah.
But it was you coming on going, here we go, boys, this is going to make us brilliant for the last 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And I could see Shawsey growing a foot. And here like, at that time we didn't have supplementation in.
Yeah.
It was just nearly a mental game as well, that you were thinking that far ahead, you know? I'm not saying that reflected the scoreboard, but you were so far ahead, man.
You know, the other thing that we did, and I know now retrospectively looking back, that this was the case, but I didn't pick up on it at the time. Whenever we prescribed any training for the guys, we weren't bothered that much about a physiological response. What we were trying to do through our training, our conditioning, is build a brotherhood. And that stuck with me all through my 30 years as a coach. So we would very rarely do interval training running on its own. We would very rarely do CV training on its own. We did things that involved hard work, getting up and down, human contact, connection, competition, and then always after our sessions, guys would be picking each other off the floor, hugging each other, walking into the change rooms like this, and then other teams were just running, you know, beasting them on intervals, and that doesn't happen after an interval running session.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's
about
really
brotherhood.
interesting.
It was all about
Yeah.
brotherhood.
How did you do that with the Lions then? Because obviously, whenever you're with Wasps or you're with Wales, you're able to build that connection, build that brotherhood over time. The hardest part about a Lions tour, you were there in 2005, you were there in 2009. That 2009 tour was one of the greatest memories from my rugby playing career.
amazing.
And there was, I don't know how you did it, 4 countries coming together. there was a brotherhood there, and it was just a shame that we didn't win the tour series, but there still is that memory that lives long how many years after it.
Yeah,
Whitey, if Tommy only chased that kick, if Tommy only chased
Don't
Roger's
be
kick,
putting this on me.
everyone blames poor old Rog. Where was the
Oh,
chase, Tommy?
I'll be honest with you, 2005 wasn't enjoyable for me, but for selfish reasons, because I wasn't in charge, even though so much respect for Dave Redding for what
Yeah.
he's done in the game. But and I don't know, I just didn't have the same connection that I had with Gats and Geach on the 2009. So on 2009, I had such a brilliant connection with Gats and Geach, and I brought Paul Sturgeon with me. So we're both pretty infectious characters, I guess, with our energy that we brought. And but we did a shitload of work before we went. We traveled around the provinces on a few different occasions, and we made it personal. We sometimes went to the play. With some players we went to the home. With others we met in the provinces, and we just tried to have a connection and a personalized approach before we even got on the plane. It wasn't about chasing numbers and sets and reps. It was about connection, so that when we turned up as a Lions squad, we already had a sense of connection with the players. From my department, anyway.
Well, the one I noticed on that, Whitey, was and Bobby as well, your relationship with Adam Jones. Like, I remember it became a thing on the tour that he would have to do different sessions to us, or there was like, you were basically man marking him. And
Yeah.
how he embraced it, man. He knew exactly it was coming from a point of love, man.
Yeah.
He knew that he had his back more so than anyone else.
Well, he'd been bullied in the past in terms of some of the coaches that worked with him. And
Wow.
when I went to Wales, Gats showed me a stat, and he said, "Mate, do you realise that whenever Adam's played over the last 15 games, we've not lost, but when he's not played, we've lost." So not only that, because he needed some babysitting as well. But I just loved him and then punched him in the face. Really, no.
Uh, but that is it's very interesting, Whitey, even in terms of leadership nowadays. Do you think it's changed? Like we've discussed loads on this podcast about the good old days, the crack and the messing, and probably the tough training that we did. And you wonder, has it changed? Are coaches nowadays still able to put a player in a headlock and punch him in the face? Like, what's different nowadays compared to back then?
God. I mean, society is different, isn't it? These young lads that are exposed to different information, more information. On one hand, they're stuck on the phones, but on the other hand, they're actually maybe a little bit more open-minded than we are, reading, taking ownership for their own health and wellness. I mean, I'm sure we all agree on this if we've been in and around rugby clubs. These lads don't drink as much as the old guys used to do. You know, I do some consultancy at Wigan at the moment, and if they have a social, sometimes it's they're out for a few hours. Some guys are drinking non-alcoholic. Some guys don't drink. It's not the same. There's not as much alcohol abuse as there used to be. So that's one thing to mention. And what else has changed? I'm trying to think what else has changed.
Like, how do you?
I mean,
How
look,
did they get it out of them? Yeah.
I mean, when I look back, and it's me as well, because the way I was raised in Wigan and how I was raised, and my mum was pretty brutal with me. And when I look back over my rugby career, you know, playing rugby league, but also then working in rugby union, and I've always worked in rugby union. There's always been a thread. Even now, there's a thread in rugby. There was two sides. It was very polarized. You know, on one side, it was connection, brotherhood, crack, die for each other, train hard, play hard. It was that, and it felt a sense of belonging and tribal. But on the other side, it was misogynistic. It was disrespectful to women. It was a bit abusive. It was there was a lot of masks that were worn. You know, there was a lot of suffering behind the mask of joking, laughing, camaraderie. And I think that's starting to come out now, because there's no hiding place these days. Information is everywhere, and people are being drawn into themselves to grow and to evolve. And I just think, I actually think the young men of today, including the young rugby players of today, are a bit more whole than we are, a bit more rounded than we are. You know, I think they can call on that really tough approach. I mean, look at some of those Irish players; they're tough as fuck. But I also
Yeah.
think that maybe connect with another side that it was harder for us to connect with because of the world that we lived in.
Yeah. Like
It's
we've
really
spoke about that.
interesting. Yeah,
We've
you're just going to
spoke
say the
about
same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but we used to say the show no weakness. Whereas, that's a million miles away from where
That like
modern culture is. Like Andy Farrell has embraced, show us your vulnerabilities, show us who
100%.
you really are.
Yeah, well, Matty Pete's the same at Wigan. Do you
Wow.
know Matty? Faz went to do a talk for Matty before one of the Wigan games about 2 years ago. Because I've mentored Matty for the last 3 years, and I spoke to him afterwards. I said, "How did it go with Faz?" He said, "I asked him a question, and my question was, how have you evolved so much since your time in Ireland?" And he said, "Do you know what?" He said, "I've just learned how to feel.
Yeah.
I've learned how to feel more instead of dominate and direct, and I've learned how to feel and intuit." I mean, that is a
and
step
that
forward in the world of coaching, right there.
and
100%.
that's what like because we talked about your new direction as well. And that's the avenue you've kind of gone down there ahead of other people.
Yeah.
Like whenever you hear Andy Farrell talking about that, and myself and Donncha, we're kind of probably still back in the old way of thinking in what we remember with the change room. How do these players, how do these coaches embrace that and bring in the feel as opposed to the classic stereotype of a rugby coach in the past?
Mate, this is my belief system, right? So as a leader, coach, whatever you are, dad, whatever,
Yeah.
everything starts with you and your family, your team is an expression of you. I'll give you an example. There's a team at the moment, I don't want to mention any names. There's a team in rugby at the moment, and in my view, they've underperformed. The press are at them. Um, they're not safe, they're not stable, they're up and down. And if you look at some of the leaders in that organization, they're not safe in themselves, they're not stable, they're not whole, they haven't got what I call range, where you can wear different hats and express different parts in order to get to different people. And the teams are limited, the teams are unsafe, inconsistent, unpredictable, and so up and down. Like if you look at Faz and Matty Pete, those are two examples. Rooted, grounded, they know who they are, they know what they're good at, they know what they're shit at, they don't overcoach, they feel safe in themselves. There's no, they're not anxious. If something goes wrong, they point the finger first towards themselves and would model vulnerability to the players. And when I say vulnerability, there's two sides to vulnerability. One side is modeling to the players how good they are, but also modeling to the players when they mess up or when they're exposed or when they made a mistake. That's the new breed of coach.
It's amazing, boy, because I always found that, be it whatever, even from schools rugby up, you reflect your coach, don't you? The team, the whole dynamic, basically follow the leader. And you're right, if they have that security of knowing exactly who they are and what they're about, it drips down. It doesn't come from the bottom up.
And it's so important. I mean, I don't know what it's like in rugby union right now, but definitely in the sport of rugby league, your head coach has a responsibility. A lot of these lads might have grown up without a dad, or dad wasn't around, so they're looking for fatherly figures, like it or if you're a head coach with a rugby team, like it or not, some of your players are looking to you for fatherly support.
Wow. Yeah, you wouldn't even have thought of. But why do I know you're still in around the game. Stuff we used to use as in the business world, they'd call them KPIs or measurement markers. Like things like DEXA scan. Now you hear maybe that shouldn't be put on the board in around the environment. Whereas before that was a barometer of how to
Yeah.
see who was training and tracking well. Like how different is it now for someone in in that role, strength and conditioning role, to actually hold someone to account?
I think it all depends on your relationship with that human being. It's like, if you feel safe with me, and there's a felt sense of that, and there's security there, and we trust each other, mate, I can say anything to you. I can say, stand on your head and pull your underpants down, right? And you'll do it if I think it's going to make you better. But if there's if there's a trigger or my body's activated around you, and I just can't, we've not got the same foundation, I just have to be a bit more careful. So I
Mm.
still think, when there's a solid foundation of safety, I still think, you can push, you can really push and drive and really put a lot of pressure on people, but they have to feel safe around you.
Whitey, from your point of view, you were at the top. You were at the peak. You'd done it all, reached the pinnacle, I suppose, in sense, from a rugby point of view, and decided to step away. What happened? Why did you
Yeah.
decide to go in a completely different journey?
Um, so when I probably from my Wasps days, actually. So when I was in Wasps, I used to read a ton of books on Buddhism and things like that, but I never told anybody. I was kind of interested in what is beyond life, rugby. There's more to life than rugby. I was interested, and I was reading books, and I remember once going to the London Meditation Centre, but I didn't really tell anybody. And I remember once going to, I remember once going with Sean Edwards to
Brilliant.
a Kabbalah class, because he used to go to some Kabbalah classes, and we'd meditate in these Kabbalah classes, but we didn't really speak about it. And then I remember being at Leicester Tigers, and at the weekends, I was on my own because my wife Marta hadn't moved over then, and I remember walking around on Sundays, and I remember once hearing these people chanting in this house, and I thought, what the fuck are they doing chanting? But it drew me towards them, and there was loads of people meditating and chanting and stuff and eating food together. So what I'm trying to say is, there was a part of me that was really, really curious, and I'll be honest with you, I think that curiosity lives in us all when we're kids, but then it gets covered over with masks and attitudes, and so I was just dead curious. And then I got married, and she was really into yoga, and I wasn't into yoga. I was really into my training, and this was about probably 16 years ago. She asked me to go to Thailand on a yoga retreat. So I
You were
said,
like anti-yoga at that stage, like the
yeah,
opposite. You were
yeah,
like
The yoga.
You were a Duracell bunny, though, weren't you?
yeah.
Like,
I couldn't keep still. Yeah, you're
No,
exactly
you
right.
couldn't.
I couldn't keep still. I was running up and down to meetings. I was Mr. Dynamo, and so I said, I'll go on this yoga retreat if I can choose which one it is. So of course, my mentality at the time, I was pretty hardcore. I chose the most authentic, difficult yoga retreat probably on the planet. It was a month long in Thailand,
Of course he did.
month long in Thailand, and there was tons of intense practice.
Or a monk kicked you in the balls every 3 minutes.
Yeah, exactly, literally. And well, for the first 2 weeks, I couldn't keep still. Right, I just couldn't keep still, because yoga and the practice of yoga is designed to turn you inwards, and really kind of feel what's coming up when you're in those postures and you're still and you're breathing and you're in meditation. And I couldn't keep still, and I was itching, and I'd conveniently go for a piss all the time. But then what happened after about 2 weeks, because I was driven and she was really into it, and I started to feel things. I was able to keep still. My mind was able to go quiet, and I now know, looking back, that my brainwaves slowed down. And when that happens, you access your subconscious mind. So instead of me distracting myself all day long from what's going on the inside, stuff was coming up for me, and some of it was amazing. It was like, what the fuck? I've never felt this before. So there was happy feelings, there was blissful feeling, there was expansive feelings, there was feelings of oneness leaving my body. I was like, whoa. But also there was other stuff as well. It was like, why was I so angry? And why did I pretend I wasn't angry? And what was it about my mum that pissed me off? And why did I resent my brother? And what was going on with my relationship with my dad? And so it opened Pandora's box, really. That's the way to look at it. And opening Pandora's box can happen like that. It can also happen if there's a crisis in your life or somebody dies. And I think at some point in our life, we all have a Pandora's box moment. but it just fascinated me because I was into human behavior and human performance. I was like, whoa, I've got to know more about this. So I went back to Wales and I was in my job with Wales, and in the space of a month, I'd had a huge value shift. And at the time, even though now I love it again, but at the time, I couldn't make sense of rugby and what's rugby about? What am I doing? What am I? But all my anxiety on the inside of me, because it was scary to feel it. I was projecting it on rugby. Rugby's egoic. What the fuck am I doing working in rugby? He's an idiot. He's an idiot. And it took me a while to kind of do my work to realize that everything is spiritual. Nothing's not spiritual in this lifetime, and it doesn't matter what direction we're going. But yeah, that took me on a crazy journey of self-discovery, really, because I needed to know who I was. And so I stopped working for Wales, and I went to move to Thailand with my wife to study yoga intensely. So what happened for about 7 or 8 years, I was consulting for World Rugby all over the world, which was great, but it also paid for me to learn a different skill set. I became a leadership coach, NLP coach, yoga teacher, meditation teacher, many other things, because I was going on a different career route. And then I remember sitting with a group of men in this yoga school once, talking and being vulnerable, and I'm thinking, wow, I've never seen this before. Like, I would have shunned this a few years back, but it really
Yeah.
opened my eyes. And then I went on a few men's retreats, and I thought I can do this better.
That's incredible. I mean, that's a complete contrast to the
Yeah.
environment that you're in. Do you think that you are ahead of the curve? Do you think that when you talked with Andy Farrell, he's learned how to feel? Do you think that rugby is catching up and that is the direction things are going, is being able to bring that side and to be able to feel and more open with each other?
I do, mate. I do. Yeah, because, you and I, and rugby and men, it's all a reflection of history, the history of men in society. It's not only about that man and that rugby team. It's all a reflection of the history of men in society. And you just said that for me, it was such a shift. It's like the yogic lifestyle is very different to my rugby lifestyle. But what I know is that aspect, those feelings that I touched through yoga practice and many other things that I've done were the very feelings that I repressed growing up. So for me, it's like my journey over the last 15 years has been like a reclamation, if you like, um, of the stuff that, because growing up in Wigan, you couldn't cry, you
Yeah.
couldn't you couldn't get angry, you didn't dance because that's what women did, you
Yeah.
didn't talk about feelings because that's what women did, and so on. So I repressed, if you like, my woman, and I grew up full throttle into what I thought was a man. And so for me, it's been, you know, really integrating some of those other aspects into myself. And I don't lose my masculinity. If I trained you in now, I could kick your ass, but I'm also softer and I'm also more open and I'm also more non-linear and spontaneous and not so rigid. And I also get triggered less. I used to get triggered every other week when I was a kid. My favorite word when I was 19 was "he's a prick."
Yeah.
So that's
Isn't it amazing?
my journey.
Just on it now, Whitey, do you look back at times and think, I'm glad I went through that? It was all part of the journey. Or do you wish you had this cape now that you know? You know what I mean? Do you think it would have been helpful in it?
I mean, no, I wouldn't change anything because we're all on
Yeah.
this planet on a unique journey, aren't we? And I wouldn't change anything. The only thing that disappoints me is what I downloaded growing up about women. That disappoints me, and how unknowingly I really disrespected women for a long time in my life. When I was a kid, in rugby, conquests, talking derogatory about women, misogyny, and that's if you like. I'm not saying it applies to everybody, but that is the dark side of masculine team sports.
Do you mind chatting to us a bit more about that? See, like, personally, my own knowledge of it isn't good enough. I was lucky, my dad passed away at 6, so she became nearly everything, center of the world. So I nearly go the other way. I understand it totally from that kind of female side, but
yeah.
and would have always been massively conscious of that. But I do worry now, you know what I mean, when you see the rise in certain role models and influencers for young men,
Yeah.
that we could end up with this real problem for men, exactly like what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's just in society, especially where and it is a generalization because you do get outliers. Generally speaking, I work with some clients who were raised by women only, and most of them have a really beautiful relationship with women. They can't get the shit together, and they're not really good with the masculine stuff, but they're great with women. But generally speaking, um, like where I grew up, all the men totally suppressed everything inside of them that was feminine.
Oh,
Everything, and became hyper masculine, which means linear, process driven, steps, building, effort, goals, discipline, determination, grittiness, more linearity. And the other stuff is the opposite. It's the spontaneity, it's the non-linear ways of thinking, it's non-linear ways of moving and talking, and less rigidity and more presence. And um but I do think it's changing. I mean, there's some idiots on social media, aren't there? But I think from my lens and the people who I work with and the teams that I end up going into, I think it's slowly changing, but it's going to take a while because men have been misogynistic to women for generations and generations and generations and generations through fear of a power of a woman, fearing the feminine and what they bring.
Do you
sure you.
think then, do you think, because I think of leaders, the greatest leaders that we've been a part of in teams, you think of alpha males,
Yeah.
and they did have that masculine energy. Do you think that's changed?
For me, there's nothing wrong with being an alpha male if you can tap into other aspects of your human expression. One of the uh, things that I talk about, and I am going to be hopefully speaking publicly about it next year because my book's coming out before the end of the year on male leadership. And one of the things that I speak about is the importance of having emotional range as a leader. So if I'm working with you two in a team in order to kind of, so I always say when you're the leader of a team, if you want your team to be sometimes stoic, you need to model that. If you want your teams to be really gritty and determined, you need to model that. If you want them to have a laugh, you need to model that. If you want them to be conscientious, model that. If you want them to admit the weaknesses, model that. If you want them to be sometimes goofy, model that. If you want them to be open and not afraid to show the sadness and the grief, model that. If you want them to stand up and say, do you know what, boss? Mate, I'll give it my all, but I'm a bit fucking nervous this weekend. Model that to
Yeah.
them. So that is what I call range, you know. So I can still be the ultra alpha if it's needed, right? Uh, a lot of men think if they get into all that feminine stuff, they'll lose their masculinity. It's not true. It just makes you more whole and gives you more range. That's my
Whitey, can you give us an example of who you think of in the past rugby circles that you've been lucky enough to work with that had that? You know what I mean? That we would.
not many apart from Faz and Matty Pete, but I hear good stories about uh what's his name? Smith, the Kiwi coach, the all stager.
Scotty Robinson.
No,
Razor.
Smith. He used to
Oh,
coach
Wayne
Northampton.
Smith.
Wayne Smith. I hear some good stories about
Yeah,
him
yeah.
in terms of that, and
Okay.
I'm guessing Scott Robinson is also within that as well. You see different aspects of him, don't you? Different
Yeah.
flavors
Well, I saw.
of
I
him.
s-
He's not like an Alex Ferguson, which seems to be like just this
no.
way.
Can I ask you, Whitey, then, from a leadership point, because we're not all head coaches of rugby teams, but a lot of us are dads.
Yeah.
And you talked there about how the importance of a dad is growing up. And Donncha, you've talked about losing your dad and how your mum became everything and your older brothers probably helped in and filled in there as well.
Yeah.
Like, as a parent, how important is it for us as a dad to our young boys, but also to girls, and being able to show that vulnerable side too?
Well, I mean, it's incredibly important. I think we place too much emphasis on talking and verbal information. I mean, when your kids are 1 to 7, they learn by downloading from how you are. They learn from how you are in the, you know, how you are with your emotions, how you are with your wife. They copy you actually. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, mate. Correct me if I'm wrong, but as a dad, you want your kids to be safe to cry without shaming them, don't you? And you want your kids to be able to come up to you and say, "I'm a bit scared, Daddy," without devaluing that. And you want your kids to be able to say, scream and get angry sometimes and say, "No, Dad, I don't want to do that," and protect their own boundaries. Um, but they can only do that if they can see it in the world. And it's never too late. I've worked with some dads who, they're age 40 and they're age 50, and they open up to a part of them that they've repressed over the years, and they show it to the kids, and it just reconnects them like never before. It's just so wonderful. I think being a dad never stops.
I can imagine. Whitey, you're so right. It is something like we're all trying to be better, but it is the ultimate responsibility being a parent. And I
Yeah.
think you're right. If you show the way, it's so easy to follow if you show the way. But just on that, the importance of maybe it's something that we're losing a bit, that community. Like just going back to my own story. So I needed male influences. And
Yeah.
that's where rugby became really good for me because I had brilliant underage coaches that were tough on me. And I worry in modern society, are we taking away from the village, the influence of others to help shape you because we should all stick in our own lane and look after ourselves. And that's something I worry about.
I mean, me too, mate. I mean, the powers that be, especially through the world of social media, for example, and AI and technology, that I mean, they want us to design a life where we don't leave our bedrooms. Where we're just on our computer all day, we're on our screens all day. So that's a real fear, isn't it? So, sport has a potential role to play in society like never before. Sport, the arts, communities, families, any type of community, music communities, dance communities. I mean, the world's crying out for community, really, isn't it?
It's one thing I listened to you talking to Matty Pete, and he talked about connection. And it's
Yeah,
it's what they base everything about in
yeah,
Wigan is connection
yeah.
between players, supporters, everyone.
And mate, you don't connect through your words. You don't connect through logic. You don't connect through thinking. You connect through your body. You connect through feelings. That's the way you connect. And also with connection, it's not fixed. It has to be rebuilt. You have to be attuned. My team are connected now, but we just lost a couple of games. They seem disconnected. It's a moving feast, but it's a physical pursuit. You can't connect with someone through words or intellect. They've got to be able to feel you, and then they could move towards you.
Whitey, that is mad you say that because the best atmosphere I've been at in quite some time was the Aviva for the Lions versus Argentina match, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Normally the Aviva, to be fair, I love it to bits and we want to other, but the atmosphere can be quite flat. But before the game, Tommy, the charity, they did a
Oh
thing
yeah. Loose
where
heads.
loose head, everyone hugged the person either side of you just
They
before the
called it
match.
hugby.
Hug me, that was it.
How good is
And
that?
something happened. But it was like they sprinkled magic sauce on the Aviva. Like
Yeah.
the place was hopping, man.
I mean, that's social contagion, where a few people do something and there's a ripple effect. It's incredible.
Yeah. But like
It's
I
yeah.
go to mass, and you wonder have we lost that? You don't shake hands like we used to at mass. You know what I mean, and stuff like
I
that.
mean,
How
I mean,
important?
even with your kids, or if you work with young men, or if you inspire young people, a touch is more powerful than words.
Mm.
You know,
Um,
a hand on the shoulder, you know, high five is so important. Another interesting coach that I know of is a guy called Tony Smith. He's an experienced rugby league coach, and he would have some of this range as well. I remember he said to me, he said, every single day of my career, when I go in the morning, I make sure I touch every player. Sometimes it's a handshake, punch, elbow. I'll bump into them, a bit of crack, but he touches every single player. So the people's nervous system feels like they're being seen by the head coach.
it's actually something that Joe Schmidt brought in whenever he came into Ireland. And I think looking back on it, I probably resented it a little bit because, you know, you'd be hanging out with guys till 9, 10 in the evening and then you're getting up in the morning. And he made every player and every coach shake hands with each other the first thing every morning, look each other in the eye and shake hands.
Yeah,
And I was like, oh, this is a pain in the arse. What am I doing this for? I was only talking to you a few hours ago.
yeah.
But you're saying that connection actually builds something much bigger than you even think
Yeah,
of.
it's a currency. Every time you genuinely make contact with someone, well, if you're attuned to them, not, you know, not like that, but especially
Yeah.
when someone is attuned with you and they make contact with you, it's connection currency. It's social capital, as they used to call it in Saracens.
Whitey, you've brought me back somewhere, man. I've gone back to midweek massive down the South Island where they hongy. You know, where they press noses off each other, and like there's that intimate moment of locking eyes.
You love
No.
that, didn't you?
No,
I love
no
a
more.
hongy.
Whitey, listen, we could talk to it. I find this really
Yeah,
fascinating.
same.
Listen, your big role now is mentoring. You do these retreats, you do an amazing stuff. And I know a few people who have gone on these retreats and you've worked with them. And the feedback we've had is amazing. But there's also another side of it that I know a number of rugby players who've hung up the boots and are struggling with
Mhm.
life after sport. How dangerous, how worried are you for professional players stepping away from the game? And even this is not just rugby players, this is big leaders and the pressure and then all of a sudden stepping away from maybe their main purpose in
Well,
life.
you've just mentioned a word there, pressure, and that is necessary, but it's also dangerous. I interviewed a guy recently on my podcast. He was a Premiership football player for Burnley, a guy called Clark Carlisle. And when you listen to his career, he was driven so hard. He believed that all he had was football and nothing else from a very young age. And then he was told that his career was going to end, and he said, "Fuck that, my career is not going to end." But cut a long story short, he tried to commit suicide 5 times.
Jeez, gosh.
Like, he's in a good place now because he started to share his experience and be vulnerable, let it out. But for years, nobody knew he was suffering. So, and when there's so much pressure on you as an athlete to, and that's all you've got, and you think, and you haven't got any other tools in your box or awareness of what you might do when you finish, it's a dangerous place. Because if your career's cut short, you think you've got nothing, your life's not worth living. And when it eventually comes, if you've not developed other skill sets and ways of doing things, that you'll suffer. So, I mean, it's obviously a loss of identity. You know, we have an identity, we're grounded, rooted, and then there's no identity. Now, what we should be teaching athletes, especially when they're kind of moving through the latter stages of career, instead of looking at ending your career as, oh my God, we should be doing the opposite, rubbing the hands, opportunity, potential. You know, what can you be? Let's tap into your talents. Let's do an assessment with you. Some of what I do with my clients is I help them to uncover the unique talents that could play out in any domain in life, for example. So that's the attitude that we should have, really. It's like it's the same as when someone comes up to a midlife crisis. It's no different to an end of career crisis. I talk about a black door and a white door. You know, the black door is, oh shit, fuck, what am I going to do? And the white door is opportunity, guidance, experimentation, do what I love. But I guess we need some role models. I guess some rugby players who have done it and done it well need to speak up a bit more, maybe. But it's an opportunity. It's not a crisis.
It is a mindset at that point, though, isn't it? Because all that's different is your perception at that time. It's the black door of, oh shit, or it's the white door of, here we go.
Or the
exactly.
fear of the unknown, though, Donncha.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
fear of
yeah.
the unknown. But even that, Tommy, the fear of the unknown. Imagine in school if our teachers told us that that's where magic is, and that's where potential is, and that's where a new expanded version of you lives, and that's the next stage. And that again, that's part of my work. You know, if we always do what we've always done, we'll always get what we've always got. And life is always pushing us to evolve. We've no choice. We have to evolve. And if evolution lives in the unknown, that's where it lives. So from time to time, we do have to go into that and step into that to keep growing. We can't be, try and be the same all our life, drinking, porn, addictions, social media, and pretend that we don't want anything to change. We have to change. Life is change.
Whitey, just on that change, what if someone listening in now know they need to probably get out of the circle they're in? What's the big rock for you? What's the area? It doesn't matter if you're a mom of four, a workaholic, a dad that's up the walls. What's the big rocks that you always see that someone who just wants to get better needs to have?
For me, we need only more would be useful, but we need one person in our life that gets it, that gets us. You know, because let's say we've been with a tribe for a number of years and we feel like it's not really our values anymore, and there's a shift happening, but we can't say that much because we'll be ridiculed. Or we need one person that really gets us. It's really important to find that person and to share vulnerably and openly and feel the support of that person. That really is the first step, and then start to kind of grow with that person. And then, you know, if you need to seek help, you seek help beyond that. But you need someone that gets you and understands what you're going through and some of the struggles that you're going through. That's really important. Otherwise, disaster can happen. The reason why people commit suicide is because they've internalized the suffering for so long. They think no one will get them, no one will understand them, they'll be ridiculed, and then life's not worth living. So talking to someone that gets you is the first step, really.
Is that mentorship or is that just a friend?
It can be both, Tom. It can be mentorship, it can be a friend, it can be an online group, it can be a retreat, it can be um, a relative, it can be anything, really.
Can I ask you, right? Because we could talk again
Yeah, we
for
could,
ages with
man.
this.
We could.
Listen, for people who might be interested in this, Craig White mentoring, your website, social media as well. Your podcast is Dare to Be Different as well for people who want to find it. But what do you offer, Whitey? If somebody listened to this and felt that they wanted to get more involved in potentially a retreat or something
Yeah.
else, like what sort of thing do you offer to people that might be interested?
Well, at the moment, I'm only doing one-to-ones because the type of, but I will be doing retreats next year. The other reason I'm only doing one-to-ones is because I'm writing a book that's almost finished on the redefinition of male leadership in today's world. Although I don't know what it's going to call yet, but I'm just doing one-to-ones at the moment. And my signature program is called the Midlife Intensive because a lot of the guys that I attract, they're in the mid-40s, 50s even, or sometimes 30s, and they've been boom, boom, on the juice, going for it, going for it, going for it. And then something inside of them says, hang on a minute, I've got all this success, all this material possessions, and I'm identifying with provision, but there's something missing. There's something missing. So that's a redirection this way. So I created a program called the Midlife Intensive, which is a midlife. You stop, you helicopter yourself out of your normal environment. You come and spend 3 days with me without your telephone, and I take the guys through it. There's more to it. It lasts for about a month. There's a questionnaire, 2 Zoom jumps, 2 Zoom sessions, a lot of prep work, 3 days with me, and on the back of it, another Zoom session. But it really uncovers their life so far. You know, what's driven them, what's served them, what's not served them, where they're at now, where they're being driven towards, what are the talents at this stage of their life, what are some of the mistakes they might be making within their intimate relationships. And then day 3 is like, who do you want to be 1 year from now? And let's get going. Let's put an action plan together. So that's kind of My midlife intensive. Of course, not every man can afford that, but the guys that I attract, they're influencers, and I want to attract influencers. I want to attract leaders that have got a lot of employees, because then it can be filtered down. And I also offer remote mentorship where we go month to month online. Some guys come to see me for a day and a half, and I was running a program called Iconic, which was a 7-month program online in Peru for 10 days with Machu Picchu on it, and then an integration period. But it's just stopped about a month ago. I might do it again next year, but that's where I'm at the moment.
Do you have for people who, obviously you have your own book going out, have you a book that you think that would be good for somebody to maybe pick up and read to maybe open up that discovery?
The map. Go on.
Who's that by?
The map by
That's
who,
called The Map,
Whitey?
and it's by a guy called David Diane Fisher, who's an English former actor that now lives in Los Angeles. And it's a book that I recommend to all my clients. And it's really a book about radical ownership. It starts with you. You've got to feel in your body what you couldn't feel. You know, the outside is a reflection of your inside. If you don't talk to yourself well, if you're not kind to yourself, if you're always criticizing yourself, you'll do the same with other people. So it's really a book about really internalizing it and doing your own work, and making it all about you.
Amazing. Whitey, one last quick one. Would you go back in the game if the right approach came from a team or a
No,
club?
not full time. I've been asked to do some leadership work with a Tier 1 nation, which I might do next year, but I wouldn't do it full time.
Yeah, okay.
You're a loss to the game, Whitey, but an incredible gain to so many
Yeah,
fellas out
100%,
there
man.
who
You're
are
in your
benefit
lane
from
now,
it.
man. Yeah.
And to be fair, when I see the background there in the middle of the forest, where is it you are in England?
Hebden Bridge. This is where I work with my clients. I actually work with them from this land. There's a studio over there where we work. They sleep here. We go for walks. We go for cold water swims. We get out into nature. So yeah, a lot of my coaching is actually really practical and nature based. You know, it's not life coaching. It's immersive. We use metaphors in nature. There's a lot of physical work in it as well, because that's obviously part of my background. So yeah.
I know it's something that you talk an awful lot about, is just getting out in nature, leave the phone behind and go and embrace everything that's beautiful out there. Whitey, listen, thanks so much for that. Really enjoyed it. Really
guys.
interesting. My God.
Yeah, Whitey, it's a balls we're online, man, because I'd love to hug you and fucking
Right,
tell
me
you thank
too.
you so much.
Yeah, me too, mate. Me too.
Genuinely, man. Fucking,
No,
you got
both
the
of you.
best out of us every time.
I've got fond memories of both of you. So thanks for having me.
No, but you've got the best out of us, and we always did it with a smile as well. We loved it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, mate. Thanks
Whitey,
for
good
those.
man.
Thanks for that. Cheers.